No, this is not the same Audi that broke and had major catastrophe. This is another one. Let's take a look at what happened. Let's get started. In the previous video, you guys have seen we had a 2012 Audi Q5 that had cylinder head issues, had a burnt valve, timing chain, all kind of different things going on. The customer had already put lots of money into it and she was at her wit's end and she said, send it to the junkyard. If that's shocking to you, that means you probably haven't seen that video yet. Click the link below in the description. You need to go check out that video. She literally said, take my Audi to the junkyard. It only had like 100,000 miles on it. This one's not going to the junkyard. It's a 2015 and the cylinder head is fine, but it has timing chain issues. We'll take a look around it just real quick here in a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the things that we found, how we found out what's wrong, and how this is such a common problem on the 2.0 turbo VW Audi engines. Where some of you guys said they're good engines, they're not. They're just not. And I'll tell you why also here in a little bit. Let's take a look around this thing, check the interior out, and then we're going to dive into the engine bay. Well, the only flaw I'm seeing so far on this beautiful front end is the bird poop. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not a detail shop. But it is very clean, very nice looking. The one thing I do like about Audi is that their styling is really, really good. I wish they would get their quality up and they would be that much better of a vehicle, but I really like Audi styling. We're very busy in the shop, so we're having to use the back lift, and there's a little less room around this, so we won't go all the way around, but you can see that this thing is in very nice shape. It's not dinged up or beat up. It has good paint on it. Here's a quick shot of the back. You can see a little bit. You can see that badge, 2.0T. That is what we're going to be talking about today. Back end is in nice condition. Really, the whole car is in nice condition. It is definitely worth fixing the issues that it has. Equally nice on this side as well. Let's go ahead and hop into the interior.
Okay, ladies and gents, this has 133,000 miles on here, so it has a fair amount. We can't turn it on, so we can't see the gauge cluster in its full glory, but let me go ahead and uncover that light. Can't turn it on because obviously he's working on the timing chains. But some simple designs here, simple gauges. As we move up, there's that key fob. But the dash is looking in really good condition. Has some areas that could become an issue, but they are not. Everything is looking good, clean, dust-free. As you can see, we have a nice infotainment system screen down there. We'll see the controls in just a second. We've got our vents, very simple HVAC controls. Ooh, a little hidey hole. Let's check out what's in there. It looks like we have half of a piggy bank stored in their ashtray. But there we go. It looks good. Simple gear selector. And here's our controls for that infotainment system above, for radio, for any of those other controls that are there, maps, things like that. This is the kind of car that has a movable center armrest. We can slide it back and then we can get to that cup holder as well. And then it can slide forward if you'd like to be a little bit closer and covered up. As we look at the seats, they have a little bit of bolster on the side. They're pretty comfortable. They are a very, very dark gray, and they're in good condition. If we look at our door cards, we have some wood trim there as well. We have a little bit of wood trim over there on the front dash above the glove box as well. It looks really good in nice condition, but a lot of dark charcoal gray. The back seat's in really good condition. It does have a 40-60 split with an armrest in the center. Everything is looking in really good condition. Nice clean, floor is looking good, no dust, nothing going on. It does have some nice plastic lined, kind of a WeatherTech-ish floor mat as well on both sides. So that definitely helps keep the car in good shape. We scroll up, we can see it has a very, very large double size panoramic roof. You can kind of see that some of the lights are shining through, so it does have a bit of a sunshade as well. So we're not roasting, the family as we're going down the road. So here we are at the steering wheel, ladies and gents. That means we're almost over. Here's a quick review, because we've kind of seen this before when we had that other Audi. But you can see we have the lovely interlocking rings in the center, and with some simple controls on both sides. Nothing fancy, nothing too crazy, just some good controls that we can keep our focus on that road ahead of us. Enough of this interior talk. Let's jump under the hood.
Here we have our 2.0 turbo. And as you can see, the front end has been removed. meaning the timing covers and things of that nature. You can see the timing chains in place. We have not removed them yet because there's some very, very informative things that I want to show you today of what happens when they mean your timing chain is stretched and some of the symptoms that it has. Danielson has already started diving into this thing, and I told him to stop right here so we can really show you guys some information. So this Q5 came in with very long cranking time, and when it would start, it ran really rough for a while, and it would kind of clear up, and sometimes it wouldn't clear up. And this is the exact same symptoms that my 2012 VW Beetle had. It was a turbo Beetle. It had the 2.0 turbo, just like this engine. And it too had the same symptoms, and it ended up being the timing chain. Here in the shop we've done about 15 or 16 sets of these, and it is very, very common. I knew what the problem was when we first road tested it, but I wanted to verify, so we took a look at the codes. Let me show you what we found. Camshaft position actuator, open. Crankshaft position, camshaft correlation. Fuel rail system pressure too high. So the fuel rail pressure too high is definitely a symptom of stretched timing chains. That's what's going on here, is the timing chain is stretched way, way out of whack. It causes issues with the high pressure fuel pump because it's ran off the camshaft, literally on the back of the engine. It's bolted right there and runs off an eccentric off the camshaft. There's the code for cam crank correlation. The computer is seeing the crankshaft at this position. It expects to see the camshaft at this position, but it's not. It's having to actually make adjustments to bring it into the position it would like, and that tells the computer the timing is off. Something is wrong. We verified that. There's an adaptation value, a PID that you can look at, and it should be maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or something. This one was clear up to 20 something. It was way, way out of whack. And the last code, which was on top, is a camshaft position actuator. It's telling it to do this or do that, saying you need to move the timing a little bit, and the computer's seeing no change in the timing value. So the computer's like, well, then the thing must be bad. It's not bad. It's just reached the maximum it can do. So he's like, what does all this mean? And it equates to thousands of dollars. Not 4 or 5,000 or 7 or 8 like the other Audi is. It's like, we're talking like a couple, somewhere around in that range. So we've seen the top end of the engine. I want to raise this thing up and show you guys just how bad this is. So here's the new tensioner. And you can see that the plunger is barely sticking out of the barrel. It's not very much. There's actually graduated lines you can see that are used for a locking mechanism. It should be sticking out maybe this far on a normal engine. 2 or 3 clicks, maybe 4. Let's take a look at what we got on this engine. Look at that, guys. Here's our tensioner. I told you 2 or 3 clicks, maybe 4. That thing is at maximum. It can't even go anymore. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 clicks out. It doesn't have any more clicks left. This timing chain is stretched so bad that the next step is a damaged engine from being out of time. So the tensioner can no longer tension, and the chain continues to stretch and stretch and stretch. The computer's saying, okay, I can tell the chain is stretched, let's add a little bit timing here, change the actuator on the cam gear, and try to keep up with what's going on here. And finally it reaches a point it can't actuate anymore. The tensioner can't stick out anymore. The next thing is the chain actually starts getting so loose that it will skip teeth on the timing gears. Then it'll be out of time, it'll run really bad, and if it gets bad enough, the valves can hit the pistons and cause major, major engine damage. The reason why this thing starts rough when you first start it up is because the computer takes a few seconds to try to compensate for the overstretched timing chain, and until it can compensate, it's running way out of time. It also can make it long cranking because the compression is down. It's that far off, guys. Let's take a look at some of the old parts and then move over to the new parts. So luckily we didn't have a major tear down to get to the timing chain. Some people like to pull the bumper off and get it into the service position, but Danielson knows how to do this without pulling it all apart. We do have this little upper timing cover off. Here's our harmonic balancer. Here's our camshaft adjuster magnet, which actually does the actuating for the camshaft adjuster, which is the timing gear. And here's a dipstick tube with no dipstick. They don't want you checking your oil. That should be done at a dealer only. Shame on you for checking your oil. And then we have a serpentine belt. Here we have the lower timing cover. And these can get so bad with the timing chain stretching that it actually reaches over and starts rubbing on this little tab here. Luckily it didn't get that bad. My Beetle did. It was actually starting to cut into this thing. But we got lucky. Other than some bolts and things, that's pretty much it. Let's head on over to the table with the new parts. Here's our new kit that comes with new timing covers, new guides, new tensioner that I just showed you, and chains. Here's the brand new timing chain. We do not have the old one out, but if you were to remove it and lay it right next to this one, it would literally be about this much longer, maybe even more than the new one. All these little pins and all these little links over time stretch, and the gap in between each one increases, and you get what's called stack tolerance. You get a few thousandths on each pin, and you start adding it up, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and it starts adding up, and the chain gets to be this much longer. Luckily we caught this one in time before any damage was done. It starts out with a little bit of rough running, maybe even a check engine light, then it turns into long crank. Then it turns into rough running, really rough running, and sometimes rough running all the time because the computer has run out of adjustment. It can't even compensate anymore. And the final step is it starts skipping teeth on the chain and causing damage. You don't want to wait to that point. You got the check engine light and it's hard cranking. It's time to get your Audi 2.0 in and check it out. The cylinder head on the other Audi that we actually had big catastrophe, the 2012 that's sitting over there, is at Martin Machine getting rebuilt. He thought he could just skim it and maybe do a valve job, replace the burned valves, and we'd be good, but he checked out the valve guides and he said this is a very common problem on these. They burn oil like no tomorrow. It's either the rings or the valve guides, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it if it's the rings. You can get the engine rebuilt, but it's going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So to prove to you guys that these are not a good engine, they burn oil, just like we just mentioned. Martin Machine proved that. And we have seen it as well. And that Audi was burning oil. This one probably will get to that point very soon. When I went to order the timing chain kit, I'm used to seeing 4 or 5 parts in stock for most cars. For any other given part, an alternator, a water pump, a timing belt kit, they might have 10 in stock. The timing chain kit, they had 97 kits in stock. I actually called them and I said, do you sell a lot of these? They said, we can barely keep up. We're keeping the stock really high, and by the time that it gets depleted, our next shipment comes in and we can build it back up. Does that sound like a good engine to you? Also, they sell cylinder heads through my supplier, and instead of having a few of those in stock, there was over 100 cylinder heads with new valves and everything ready to go. When I called them as well and I asked them, do you sell a lot of those? He said, absolutely. We sell a ton of those. So if you get these things fixed, it is a design flaw, and really the parts you're putting in are not updated, upgraded parts. You're going to get them to last about as long as these did. If there are any upgrades, it might make a small little difference, but it's not going to make a big difference. So this one's at 130,000 miles roughly. You can get probably another 100 at least out of it if the car lasts that long. Like I mentioned, if you buy one of these with a 2.0, you can bank. You can be guaranteed you will have engine trouble with it. You say, oh, it's only got 70,000 miles. Okay, good. In about 30 or 40, this is going to be your scenario right here. So the purpose of this video is to let you guys know you're out in the market and you're like me, you see the Audi Q5, say, man, that looks nice. That really is a nice car. And you go and road test it and it drives good. Everything kind of matches up with the price. He's like, this is a great car. I want you guys to know up front what you're getting into. With any vehicle that has the VW or the Audi 2.0 turbo, it can be a Passat, a Beetle, a Jetta, an Audi Q5, a Q3. There's a lot of vehicles with this engine in there. So, buyer beware. It is definitely a buyer beware. Also, turbos. We had to put a new turbo on the 2012 that's sitting over there a long time ago. That's some information for you guys on the market for one of these engines. If you're curious what kind of tools Danielson used to tear this thing down, or going to be putting it back together, or any other vehicle in the shop that we use, check our Amazon affiliates. Link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. And make sure to hit the subscribe button because there's tons of cool videos to come. Thanks for watching.